Welcome to the Pandemic Pinup Happy Hour. It is Mother's Day, and I'm super excited to celebrate with you guys and mainly just honor a tradition that is a part of my family that was passed down to me by my mother, that was passed down to her by her mother, and so forth. So today we are doing pie-inspired cocktails, and we're going to learn a few new ingredients, a few techniques, and I'm going to tell you which pies inspired which cocktail. So we are going to jump around a little bit, which is a little unusual for the way that we usually do things here, because one of the ingredients we have to prepare has to be prepared ahead of time. So I'm going to teach you how to make something called chocolate tea, spelled CHOCLIT. It's something made off of the Caribbean coast in Costa Rica. It has a lot of Jamaican influence, but basically they make a cacao nib infusion. So to do that, all you need is cacao nibs that you grind up similarly to the texture of coffee, and then you can brew them the exact same way you would brew coffee. So for today, I'm going to do this in this. I would say I've done this with a pour over, I've done this with a classic drip pot like the Mr. Coffee pots, and a French press. All of those yielded fantastic results. However, I also tried it in a siphon. Not a good idea. The cacao nibs do have a fattier content than regular coffee beans, so they ended up stopping up the siphon to where it just created this layer of fat that the water could get. So I would recommend not using that. Do any of the other three methods. It also works really well if you put it into the little K-cups that are customizable for the Keurig style machines, and then just brew it as an espresso so that it's really nice and intense. The cabinets have a little bit of a softer flavor than coffee, so you need a little bit more of it or a longer infusion time to get the desired taste. So I have just about a quarter cup of ground cacao nibs, and it looks, well, from there it looks like cocoa powder, but it is texture of coffee. I put the cacao nibs in my coffee grinder, ground them up, and putting that into my French press. And then I have some hot water that I just took off of my stove. I don't know if y'all can see that steam, but it's piping just below boiling. So I use about a quarter cup of cacao nibs to about 8, maybe 10 ounces of hot water. So I'm going to let this sit here and infuse. I would say no less than 4 minutes, but you could go as far as 8. We are going to be using the chocolate tea hot. So we're going to make the cocktail in the meantime and then come back to that and it should be ready. So our first actual cocktail that we're making today is something I'm calling Apron Strings. So one of my favorite pies of all time. And this is not something I say lightly. I love pie. I love cake. I will take pie over birthday cake pretty much 99% of the time. So easily in my top 5 is strawberry rhubarb cream pie. And my favorite recipe that I ever made of that was using sour cream as part of the custard cream base. And I really enjoyed that because the acidity that is in sour cream really complemented and tied together the strawberries and rhubarb. And it's just such a phenomenal pie. So I was inspired by that pie to make Apron Strings. So our prep list this week indicated that you could infuse gin. Yes, you can infuse gin with strawberry and rhubarb. So that ratio is posted on the Underground Cooking Club Facebook page. If you need it, can't find it, reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to send it your way. So that's what this beautiful red liquid is, the infused gin. And so we're going to be using that. And this cocktail requires a shaker. This is probably the most complex out of all the cocktails I'm making today, ingredient-wise. So we'll be using 2 ounces of the strawberry rhubarb infused gin. And then I'm going to be using one of my favorite syrups that I don't make. I do make a lot of my own cocktail syrups, but Cocktail Sons makes a fashionola syrup. It's a strawberry hibiscus syrup, and the tartness of the hibiscus kind of mirror the one in rhubarb, and the strawberry just repeats itself. The color is gorgeous, and it just felt like a really natural pairing for this cocktail. So a half ounce of that. And then we're going to use a ½ ounce of lemon juice, preferably freshly squeezed. And we're also going to add in some lemon curd. So if you're unfamiliar with lemon curd, it's just kind of like a lemony spread. It's not really jelly. It's also not really a marmalade. It's usually more of a custard slash spread put together or thickened by like egg yolks if you make the traditional version. I'm using the store-bought kind. But I'm going to use a hefty bar spoon of this. So you know what that looks like. So, yeah, get better contrast. So a hefty bar spoon of lemon curd. Put that in there. All right. And then we're going to add in an egg white. I'm making this sour here. And then I wanted to make it creamy because again, this is strawberry rhubarb cream pie inspired. So because I didn't want to put just sour cream, I didn't want to just make a classic creamy cocktail with heavy cream, I went with Mexican crema because it's got a little bit of the flavor profile of what we associate sour cream with, but then it's got more of the texture of heavy cream, so it gives me the texture and flavor that I'm looking for without having to compromise the actual product. So we're going to put in a ½ ounce of that. Okay. So with all that craziness in there, we're going to ice this shaker. Okay. For about 10-15 seconds. All right. So now that you've made or shaken your cocktail, you want to strain it. If you do hear a little chiming in the background, please forgive the noise. Somebody's trying to call me on the phone. Oh, that's in there. I totally forgot to put on the house. So now I'm going to shaken the cocktail. I'm going to choose this nice little cocktail glass that I have here. I'm going to drain. Oh, I'm actually going to use the actual shaker itself to strain this. Put it right in there. Really pretty. Nice and pink, nice and creamy looking. And then because I wanted these to all be very pie inspired, I also kind of went a little overboard with some of the garnishes today. So by all means, please feel free to make simpler garnishes if you would like. But I took some lemon wheels and I candied them in a sugar syrup. And that is my garnish. So that, guys, is Apron Strings. Cheers. It tastes like, well, it reminds me of the pie, but if you've never had the pie, then it tastes like I don't think yogurt sweet. All right, moving on to our chocolate tea. Chocolate tea cocktail. I'm gonna go ahead and plunge this. So this cocktail is called, pardon my French, and it is inspired by a French silk pie, also known as a chocolate silk pie, also known as a chocolate cream pie. So I just thought pardon my French was a cute name, but it's inspired by chocolate, traditional Southern chocolate. So I wanted to take those ingredients. I wanted it to kind of look like chocolate pie, but I also wanted the flavors to come through. And I've decided to present this as a hot cocktail, very similar to an Irish coffee. So I have this really pretty little vintage coffee cup. So this comes out of here. And this is a built-in the glass cocktail. So we're going to be using 1 ounce of creme de cacao, which is a chocolate liqueur. Please feel free to use the clear one or the dark brown version. I have the clear on hand. If you have the dark brown one, it'll darken the color of the cocktail and make it look even closer to the color of the pie. And then we're going to add in a ½ ounce of dark or spiced rum. I tried this with a couple different rums that I have at home. I actually really liked it with the Kraken black spice rum, but please feel free to experiment. It's only a small amount, so it changes the cocktail, but not so much as to make it an entirely different piece. It just kind of adds a slight difference in taste. So a half ounce of your spiced rum. And if you've ever had a traditional Irish coffee, those usually come with that layer of cream floating on top, that like soft whipped cream or softly whipped cream. It's not like fully stiff peaks. So I thought that that kind of resembled a French silk pie because it usually has like that white whipped cream layer on top, and then it's got the grated chocolate. So I just have regular heavy cream, and I'm really lazy. I don't whip it. I just shake it back and forth until it's loosely whipped. So I'm just doing this as like a little pregame right now. So, okay. See, why would I get out of this for all that? So now I'm having my chocolate tea. I'm gonna pour in about 3 ounces. Now this is also entirely to taste. If you try it like that, it's too strong, too boozy. Please feel free to up that to about. So I'm pouring in just about 3, leaving just a tiny amount of space for the little cream topping. Give this a little extra whip. Almost ready. Like the world's tiniest sugar. And once that's whipped to the consistency of your choosing, it doesn't have any sweetener, it's just a heavy cream. I'm going to very carefully load that on top. And then it wouldn't be high if it didn't have the same garnish. So I'm grating a little bit of chocolate on top. And then I'm also, just because I do love nutmeg, I'm gonna grate just a pinch or 2. All right. And that is imparting my finish. Gosh, that smells so good. I'm not gonna sip this immediately though, because it is hot and I put on lipstick for y'all and I don't want it to rub off after this class. But just trusting, making all the good faces that you would like to see when I sip my cocktail. It is very, very tasty. All right. And then last but not least, the last cocktail of the day is Not Your Mama's Cobbler. I love cobbler. I feel like it gets a really bad rap because it's not pie, it's not cake, it's its own beast, its own thing. And I feel like there's a very divisive way people think about it. It's very much what fruit people like. When you peach cobbler, a lot of people like apple cobbler, which to me is really strange. I don't think apple is a good cobbler. I don't think it's a good fruit for cobbler. I love berry cobblers. I think they're all great except for strawberry. But my favorite cobbler is blackberry. So I wanted to take some blackberry cobbler ideas and flavors. And then I also wanted to make an actual cobbler cocktail. It's a very classic style of cocktail. It's super old, very underused. Not enough people do it. So I took the idea of a cobbler cocktail, the idea of cobbler as a dessert, and wine, which a lot of cobblers are the cocktail, not the dessert, are based on wine, such as sherry or port. And so I was thinking about like all the moms that I know that love drinking wine and all of those combined, and I'm making a port wine blackberry cobbler cocktail that resembles blackberry cobbler. It's a mouthful. So I'm using a mixing glass and I have 8 blackberries here. Put those in. And then I made a brown sugar simple syrup, same ratios, 1-to-1 that I usually use for my simple syrups. I'm gonna put a half ounce of that in there. And now port wine in and of itself tends to be sweet. However, blackberries can be a little tart. I also wanted a depth of flavor. I wanted it to taste like a baked kind of berry instead of a fresh berry. So that's why I'm adding the brown sugar syrup. Then I'm adding in 3 ounces of a ruby port, not tawny, but you could use tawny if you wanted to. So 3 ounces of that. And then I'm gonna muddle it because I really want those berries to get really nice and crushed in there. So make sure you try to at least hit every berry. You don't have to sit here and muddle for like hours on end, but definitely try to match your berries in there because if not, why are we putting them in? All right, so once those are all just kind of mixed in there, that sugar, wine, We'll add some ice. And then we're gonna stir. So this one, I would say you want to stir it for about 20 seconds, give or take. And you can use this exact same setup with a different kind of wine, other kinds of berries, with or without the sugar syrup. And you basically have a cobbler makeup. So you could do a manzanilla sherry with raspberries. You could do an amontillado sherry. If you really wanted to, you could do vermouth. If you just have leftover wine and you don't know what to do with it, but you don't want to make sangria, this is a really cool way to just use the rest of whatever wine you forgot to drink at night or. So once that's stirred up, this nice little glass here. And guys, per usual, certain cocktails just make me feel kind of fancy and special. They on fire, it's like quite a bit. So I have my favorite, Sonic Ice. Also, the cobbler cocktails are traditionally served over like a crushed style ice. So I'm gonna be straining this over the ice. It's this gorgeous, gorgeous purple color. Another reason I went with that is it is my mother's favorite color, and it is Mother's Day. So strain that all the way up to the top. I'm gonna add just some more ice over the top so it looks traditional. And then I'm actually gonna go with the classic garnish for a cobbler cocktail, because it also made me feel like it's desserty, it's a little over the top. So I have some mint leaves. I'm gonna put those in there. And then we're gonna put powdered sugar on top. I know that sounds crazy, but it just seemed also super fitting for like a high-inspired cocktail. So just a little dusting. And I like to focus mainly on the mint and then a little bit can get on the cocktail, just to not oversweeten it. And then my recommendation would be to serve these or serve this cocktail with little bitty biscuits, because the topping for a cobbler dessert is actually made of biscuits traditionally in the South. So guys, imagine yourselves drinking that beautiful blackberry cobbler cocktail with these delicious blackberry biscuits on the side. Anybody wants the recipe? This is really tasty. I'll send it to you. They're traditional dishes. They're not specifically for this cocktail, but they're still good. So I took my class today, short and sweet, sweet as pie, which was our theme. I hope you try these out. I hope you make them for your mom. That would be like the ideal way to celebrate Mother's Day, in my opinion. Don't make her make her own cocktails. But if she cannot be with you, then make them together. Have a little class and rewatch this on YouTube or on the Facebook page. And I will see y'all next week. I don't remember which one it is. I think it's Sochu. We do have Sochu and sake cocktail classes coming up before the end of the month. So thank you for joining me, as always, every Sunday. I enjoy the people that lurk in the background and send me private messages later. I enjoy the people that come into the actual Zoom room. If you ever have anything you would like to know, any repeated information that you need, please reach out. The recipes will be up and running on the Instagram account at Pandemic Pinup by Wednesday. I usually do one a day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Wednesday they're all. If you need them before then, because you're trying to get these done with your mom and you don't want to rewatch my entire spiel for each cocktail, just let me know and I will email it directly to you. But have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, not have a rest of your Sunday. Have a lovely rest of your Mother's Day and your Sunday. I will see y'all next